Okay, so today's video I'm going to be rambling on a little bit about how you can create cocktails for high-end London bars, right? It's kind of a niche topic. I understand that the people that are going to be most interested in this are either going to be people working throughout the UK, maybe in the little suburban areas or in London bars who want to be able to up the game and create fully formatted cocktail menus for these bars. Or maybe you work for an independent and you want to understand a little bit more about what the creative process is. So this is the fourth and final video in this series. In this one I'm going to concentrate more on that stuff that I've just discussed. In the last ones we had part one, which was more about the day before the first presentation, right? Which is a big deal. It's when you've been creating all these cocktails and you're finally going to visit the bar, you're going to present them to people. Part two was the aftermath of that first tasting, how did it go and the challenges that had arisen. And part three was one of the final tastings when you kind of got everything that needs to be in place and you're just ironing out those details. So we've not long had the launch, the menus are now live. We've got 2 brands but 3 bars. So 2 of the same brands are in London and then the other one, which is also in London, but same company, different brand. Does that make sense? 2 menus, 3 venues. It's that simple. And it went well. You know, you're always worried when you first do these launches because you want everything to do well. You want people to be ordering the cocktails, you want everything to be going out smoothly. The last thing you want is negative reviews or somebody who loves one of the old cocktails that have now been taken off. But it went really well. I'll leave some snippets on the side of the day because when I went there I took my camera, so I'll get a load of content, get some videos. So what you're seeing now, that is one of the menu launches from the day. That is the brand that has more of Brazilian and Japanese influences, a lot more easy sipping cocktails, but still some creative things in there, still some interesting serves. And I think that went really well. You know, we sold a lot of cocktails. The cocktail that I thought was going to be the most popular wasn't the most popular, and one of the ones that was a kind of a throwaway cocktail did become more popular, which just goes to show you don't know how it's going to go until the day. Now, here are the ones, I'll swap over now to the other launch, how that went. That one was a lot more interesting because a lot more creative serves. You know, you can really get stuck in some more interesting things, like we've got the whole pistachio thing going on, the garnish is a little bit more interesting. So that was good fun. But how does this help you and your situation? You probably want to know more about my situation. Like I said, you can rewatch the videos and you can see, but as it stands, let me explain a little bit. So obviously, by the title of this video, the bars I work for are in London. I'm based in Manchester. Why are they hiring me, right? Why me instead of someone in-house? Well, it comes down to a few things. It's always good to get a fresh perspective or an outside perspective to really shake things up. So then they come to me, they find me through my website or social media. Obviously, it would be ideal if you could go down to the bar every kind of day or 5 times a week for a few months to really iron out these cocktails so you can taste them with everyone as they go. Me being based in Manchester, it makes that difficult. Train down to London takes about 2.5, 3 hours, and it's quite expensive. So in my situation, how it went was I create all the cocktails here from my home bar, right here in Manchester, and then we organise a tasting. When you're working on a larger degree like this, the cocktails have to go through a lot of barriers before they can go on the menu. It's not as simple as, here's a nice cocktail, let's put it on the menu. It has to go to the bar's manager, get their approval. Then after their approval, it's got to go to the AGM or the GM, get their approval. Then it goes to the area manager, then the operations manager, then the owner. And by the time it's got to them, it's taken a good few months. Then you've got to sort out logistics and all that. So it can be difficult, especially when you're not in the bar and you can't work on it every day. And you're not going to see these people every day to say, hey, try this cocktail. So how it works with me is we plan a day when all those people are going to be together in the same room for a big tasting where we'll do all 20 cocktails in one big tasting with the area manager, the operations manager, the bars manager and the owners. It's a unique situation because even though the flagship is in London, there's a lot of bars in America and a lot of the owners and the higher ups live in America. But they were down in London for a day, so that was good. We could organise the tasting. So that was part one of the video. Create all the cocktails, go down, give it them. Now, For a menu, for 20 cocktails on the menu, I would go down with about 35, 30 cocktails, because you're never going to get them crossed off straight away. They're always going to be nitpicking. The good thing about having all these higher ups in one room is you can get things sorted pretty quick. You don't have to wait for everything to happen. The bad thing is they're always going to want to say something. So one person's going to say, well, this cocktail's too sweet. I don't think it fits the brand. It's way too sweet. Let's, bring a bit more acidity into it. Where another person's going to say, oh, it's not sweet enough. I wanted it sweeter. So you got to find that middle ground. It can be hard to do. It's that old saying of, too many chefs in the kitchen and all that. Too many opinions going around. Everyone's going to want to say something. After that, it's a case of me coming back here, taking that feedback, really developing them in a way that hopefully suits everyone, and going for a second tasting. There would normally be about 3 tastings in there, right? The first one is just to present the cocktails. The second one is the changes. The third one is the changes, and we'll keep doing those so everyone's happy with the changes. And the last tasting will be like the presentation. This is the one we'll give to the bartenders and the people who'll be making the drinks. So another question I get a lot is people asking how I create these cocktails from scratch, especially when I don't work in the bar. And a lot of that comes down to the individual branding. Like I said, one of these menus takes a lot of inspiration from Brazil and Japan, so it's quite easy. All I've got to do is kind of look at classic cocktails, flavours and ingredients within those countries and within those cultures, and use those to make cocktails. You can take a classic, like a Negroni, and then take something that's quintessentially inspired by that brand, like Brazil, cachaça. Cachaça Negroni, there you go. So that's my creative system, really. I'll look for the classics that I use as a base. Negronis, old fashions, margaritas, daiquiris. Then I'll look at the branding and what really represents that brand. Sometimes it's easy, like in this case, Brazil, Japan. Sometimes a little bit harder, like duck and waffle, it's more colour focused. So you're kind of looking for those things that represent the brand the best. And I put those together and mess around with the classics to try and come up with something that not only tastes nice, but represents the brand, which is really important. It's all about branding and how it represents the brand. However, a question that I don't get asked a lot, which I feel like people should be asking, is how to create the full menu. Now, I think I'll do a separate video on this because I really do think it's important. Because a lot of people take a cocktail menu as, let's just come up with 10 or 15 cocktails that taste really good. But it don't work like that, because you've got to have versatility, you've got to have variety, all right? Because a sweet cocktail might taste really nice, but you don't want a cocktail menu made up of 10 sweet cocktails. You want a little bit difference in there, which is another driving factor on how I go about the creative side. So I know in my head, okay, I've got 2 sweet cocktails, this next one, let's try and give it a kick, let's try and make it a bit savoury or a bit spicy, or let's try and do some hard-hitting cocktails, how about that? And depending on how big the cocktail menu is, my formula is sweet cocktail, sparkling cocktail, hard-hitting cocktail, spicy cocktail, something really easy sipping, something accessible, where people will look at the ingredients and go, yep, I know exactly what that is, I know exactly how it'll taste. And then something a little bit more creative, where people look at it and say, I'm not too sure about that. And they all work together to create a full kind of menu, which works. And you're not always, you're going to have big sellers and you're going to have flops. But just because something doesn't sell a lot, it's important to know that it doesn't make it a bad cocktail. It's good to have that. One of the cocktails I did for this new menu was a kind of hard-hitting one, which was based off like a cacao nib infused sweet vermouth and a coffee bean infused whiskey. Really hard hitting, it's got a really bitter flavour, it's really niche. I know going into it, it's not going to sell a lot. The one that's going to sell a lot is the one with lychee and grapefruit. I know that, but does that mean we should get rid of the coffee one and put something else in its place that is sweeter and is going to sell a lot? Not necessarily. Because even if 1 out of 50 people is going to prefer that bitter one, that's still going to add versatility. You've got to imagine in your head, with a group of 15 people go to a bar, maybe it's a work trip, maybe it's a friend thing or a family thing, are they all going to order the same drink? Or are some of them going to prefer a harder hitting drink? Some of them might prefer a non-alcoholic drink. So it's important to have that versatility. You start off with the concept, branding, versatility, the ideas, put those all together, make a bunch of cocktails, have a tasting with other people, get the people who work there involved, try them out until you're happy with the selection you've got. After that, it's a little niggly bits, naming the cocktails and logistics. Logistics is very important. Logistics is things like how much you're going to charge for a cocktail. Is it possible? What's the prep going to look like? And what's the garnish? I've seen great cocktails with amazing ingredients and amazing garnishes, which in practice work great, but functionality wise, not so good because they can't keep up with the prep, or it's hard to get hold of ingredients, so they're always running out. So those logistics on smaller scale bars is one thing, but when you're working with large kind of London brands, which are going to be serving like a whole lot of people, it becomes very difficult. You've got to really concentrate on the logistics. A good example of this is we do a lot of pre-batching of the cocktails and the ingredients as well as the garnishes. So when we're looking at it, we're thinking, right, massive brand. We're going to need to make like 500 cocktails each. Of each cocktail, we're going to need like 500. So the pre-batch, we're not talking about a couple of bottles of whiskey here and there. We're talking loads of stuff. It comes to the glassware as well. One glassware, you might think, yeah, that's great, but then you've got to realise people are going to steal it, it's going to smash. You're going to need to spend like £5 just on glassware when you're working with these massive bars. So the logistics can be very difficult. My advice is to get a spreadsheet going, figure out how to make the cocktails the quickest way. You don't want any pre-batching that takes too long. If it takes longer than 2 weeks to infuse, it's going to be hard for people to keep up with. So make sure any kind of infusions and pre-batching is quick to do. It's easy enough that anyone can follow a recipe and do it, and that you can pre-batch enough cocktails to last a long time. The better the shelf stability on a pre-batch, the better it's going to be. Any kind of fresh juice or anything that people are going to have to make every single morning is going to become a pain in the arse. So make sure whatever you pre-batching, you have kind of shelf stability in mind, ease, and how it's going to work functionally, especially if the job in hand is a large bar. And these are what they're going to see. They're not going to just want the specs and the cocktail recipes. They're going to want to know what the GP is, and I'll leave a link for a GP calculator in the description so you can find out that. They're going to want to know things like allergies in the cocktails, how expensive it is to make the cocktails, so they can really decide which ones they want to push the most and which are going to work long term, you see? So you're working all this up, all the logistics and the creative side. The important date is the launch date and the month that follows that. And that's basically it. You know, I've said a lot during this video, but I hope you can take some nuggets of information. Maybe you work in a suburban bar or it's an independent, and you know that the big money and the big opportunities are with these large London bars, but you don't know how to get your foot in the door, or if you do get your foot in the door, you're not sure how you can pull it off. Just take it on board that you can do it with a lot of fiddling around. Something's always going to go wrong. You're always going to feel like an imposter because these opportunities are out there. And it's up to you to put yourself in front of these opportunities, to be able to reach out to places, you know, to create your social media accounts and make sure people know that they can contact you for this, and just say yes to these kind of opportunities, whether it is building a cocktail menu or a cocktail competition or just doing anything in life really. And that's it for today. If you've watched the full series, well, thank you very much. Please do like, subscribe and all that. And let me know if you like these kind of vloggy type videos and I'll make more of it. If you've got any questions about what it means to create cocktails for high-end bars or independents, or working as a cocktail consultant or a developer, or just working for yourself in the bar industry, and not as an employee but as freelance, then do let me know, because I love to help more people, because I know it can be scary to go out there on your own, but there's a lot of opportunities out there, and there's a lot of opportunities to make a good living for yourself of your own creativity. So if you do have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to advise you. I'll be happy to answer whatever questions I can along the way. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time.